A surveillance state does not usually announce itself as a surveillance state. It arrives as a sequence of practical improvements. A camera promises to help recover a stolen car. A data center promises to preserve evidence and allow agencies to cooperate. An artificial intelligence system promises to search that evidence faster, connect details that investigators might miss, and reduce the time required to find a dangerous person. Each proposal is presented separately, attached to a concrete problem and supported by an intuitively reasonable public benefit. That affirmative case must be taken seriously. These technologies can solve immediate problems. Cameras can record vehicles connected to crimes. Centralized systems can help investigators work across jurisdictions. AI can reduce hours of manual review to minutes. An argument that denies these benefits will fail because people can see the benefits for themselves. The case against the surveillance state begins somewhere else. It asks what structural pressures are created once the technology is installed, the information is retained, and the systems are connected. It then asks what the same architecture becomes when political motives change, legal restraints weaken, or the definition of a threat expands. The relevant pattern has 3 stages. First comes the affirmation, a real benefit offered in response to a recognizable problem. Then comes the pressure. The technology creates incentives for broader collection, longer retention, and more extensive integration. Finally comes the negated state. The public purpose remains in the language used to defend the system, but the system's actual function has shifted toward monitoring, classification, and control. Flock cameras, surveillance data centers, and AI integration should therefore not be understood as 3 independent technologies. They form 3 parts of a single architecture. The camera is the sensor. The data center is the memory. AI is the interpreter. Joined together, they make a population searchable. The camera, it has evolved from just an investigative tool to a movement network. The affirmative case for automated license plate readers is pretty straightforward. A camera positioned along a roadway records a passing vehicle, its plate, the time, the location, and, visible characteristics. When police are searching for a stolen car, a kidnapping suspect, or a vehicle connected to a violent crime, that information can provide an immediate lead. It can narrow a search that would otherwise consume officers' time and leave the public exposed. Flock Safety presents its system in precisely these terms. Its cameras convert passing vehicles into searchable records containing plate information, time, location, and characteristics such as vehicle type, color, and distinguishing features. The company emphasizes that its license plate cameras do not use facial recognition, that its default retention period is 30 days, and that agencies can control access and sharing. It also markets a national license plate reader network and real-time alerts that allow participating agencies to locate vehicles beyond their own jurisdictions. The structural pressure begins with the fact that the value of the camera grows as the network expands. One camera can show that a vehicle passed one location. Hundreds of cameras can reconstruct a route. Cameras shared across cities and states can reveal travel patterns. A retained history can show where a vehicle usually appears, where it spends the night, which locations it visits repeatedly, and when its routine changes. The system is therefore rewarded for becoming broader. More cameras produce more complete routes. More participating agencies produce greater geographic reach. Longer retention produces more historical context. Integration with registration, dispatch, incident, and commercial information makes the vehicle record more useful. The affirmative success of the technology creates the argument for its expansion. Government reports already describe this movement toward national reach. The Government Accountability Office found that the selected Department of Homeland Security agencies it examined could query or view third-party automated license plate reader information, providing a nationwide source of plate data. Those agencies also reported using analytical software, including AI-based systems, to enhance detection and monitoring technologies. At that point, the camera is no longer merely recording evidence of a particular crime. It is collecting the movements of everyone who passes, most of whom are not suspected of anything, so that their histories will be available if they become interesting later. The negated state emerges when retrospective search becomes ordinary administrative power. A vehicle can be followed not because its driver is suspected of a serious offense supported by evidence, but because an official wants to identify someone's associations, immigration status, medical travel, political activity, or personal relationships. This is not merely hypothetical. In 2025, Illinois officials investigated the use of license plate data by Texas authorities searching for a woman in an abortion-related case. Illinois law restricted the use of such data for abortion and immigration enforcement. Yet an audit later found that Customs and Border Protection had also received access to Illinois plate information. Flock subsequently paused federal pilot programs. That episode illustrates all three stages. The system was installed to solve crimes and locate dangerous vehicles. Its network architecture created pressure for broader interstate and federal access. The same capacity was then directed toward conduct that the collecting jurisdiction had attempted to place outside the system's legitimate purpose. The architecture did not have to be rebuilt. The cameras did not have to be replaced. Only the request, the user, and the definition of an acceptable investigation had to change. Data centers provide the centralized or interoperable storage layer that gives scattered observations a durable institutional memory. And the case for that kind of memory is actually pretty reasonable. Evidence has to be stored somewhere. Investigators need reliable access. Records should be protected against accidental loss. Agencies working on the same case really shouldn't have to exchange paper files or manually copy information between incompatible systems. Cloud infrastructure, in fact, can provide security controls, redundancy, access logs, and automatic deletion. Flock states that its license plate data is transferred to Amazon Web Services government cloud and automatically deleted after the configured retention period, which is 30 days by default. The company describes audit logs, controlled sharing, and independent security reviews as safeguards against improper use. Longer retention is possible where law or customer policy requires it, and the company offers extensions of as much as a year under specified approval conditions. The pressure starts to build because stored data possesses continuing option value. A record that seems unimportant today may become useful tomorrow. A month of information could help solve a crime reported several weeks late, so someone proposes a longer period. A neighboring agency might hold a relevant record, so someone proposes broader sharing. A different database could help identify the vehicle's owner, so someone proposes integration. Every gap can be described as a lost opportunity. Every deleted record might have contained a useful lead. Every institutional separation can be criticized as an information silo. So the data center develops a kind of gravitational pull, drawing records inward because integration promises efficiency, while deletion starts to look like deliberate blindness. Once an agency has learned to depend on historical information, retaining less information becomes institutionally difficult, even if the original public justification was meant to be temporary. The negated state is a permanent or repeatedly reconstructed population memory. The institution no longer knows only what a person did in relation to a particular investigation. It can retrieve portions of the person's past whenever a new interest arises. History demonstrates why this matters. The Census Bureau collected population information for statistical and representative purposes. During the Second World War, however, it supplied the War Department with detailed geographic tabulations identifying where Japanese Americans lived. The Bureau later acknowledged that its staff had proactively cooperated and that those tabulations helped facilitate forced removal and incarceration. More than 120,000 people of Japanese descent were detained, many of them American citizens. The lesson is not that population statistics inevitably produce incarceration. It is that information collected under one political understanding can be inherited by a government acting under another. The original collectors do not control the future meaning of the data. They create an option that later authorities may exercise. The same is true of movement records. A visit to a clinic, church, union office, protest, lawyer, or private residence may be unremarkable when recorded. Under a later law or political campaign, it may become the basis for classification or investigation. The Federal Trade Commission's cases against location data companies have emphasized that location histories can expose visits to health facilities, religious organizations, political gatherings, union offices, and other sensitive places. Retention is therefore not merely a technical setting. It is a transfer of interpretive power to future officials. Deletion denies that power. Storage preserves it. The affirmative case for AI begins with a genuine investigative problem. Modern systems collect more information than human beings can review. Hours of video may contain only a few relevant seconds. A witness may remember a dark vehicle with a damaged bumper, but not its plate. An investigator may need to search incident reports, dispatch records, license plate detections, and video held in separate systems. Natural language tools can help find relevant material without requiring officers to understand complex database syntax. Flock's freeform system allows users to search enabled video and license plate evidence using ordinary descriptions of vehicles, clothing, accessories, and movement. Its Nova platform is designed to bring together records management data, dispatch information, video, license plate data, and open source information in a single investigative environment. The company presents this as a way to reduce manual review while preserving human judgment and auditability. The pressure created by AI is the collapse of search cost. Before such systems, an ambitious surveillance question might have been practically impossible because it required many analysts, many requests, and just so many hours. AI does not necessarily create the underlying information, but it makes the information usable. It allows an operator to begin with a vague description, search multiple systems, generate a timeline, identify repeated associations, and summarize the result. Once a search becomes easy, institutions have a reason to perform it more often. Once a system can integrate another source, leaving that source disconnected appears inefficient. And once AI can detect patterns, the failure to ask it to detect additional patterns can actually be portrayed as negligence. The question changes from, do we possess sufficient evidence to investigate this person, to, why would we not check the system? AI also creates pressure for more data. A model with access only to plate records can answer limited questions. But add video, dispatch records, addresses, public records, social information, and commercial data, and the answers become more complete. So, the system's utility is therefore tied directly to the erosion of boundaries among databases. NIST has warned that AI can create privacy risks by allowing systems to infer identities and previously private information from data that may appear less revealing in isolation. The negated state is not simply inaccurate automation, it is in fact automated suspicion. A person's movements can be converted into a pattern can be compared with an expected routine. A departure from the routine can become an anomaly can become a risk indicator. Repeated proximity to another person can become an association, and that association can become a reason to search both people more intensively. The investigation into China's dynamic control platform for overseas personnel revealed this destination in unusually concrete form. The system was designed to combine identity information, camera detections, travel records, institutional records, and relationship mapping into profiles of foreigners, journalists, students, and people assigned security-related categories. The exposed version appeared to be an incomplete or test environment, but it demonstrated the intended architecture: observation joined to identity, identity joined to history, and history joined to social and political classification. The most important lesson is not that American vendors have secretly reproduced every component of the Chinese system. What really matters is that the technical distance between an investigative platform and a population intelligence platform is shrinking. The same natural language search that, say, finds a damaged vehicle can also search for people wearing particular clothing near a demonstration. The same cross-system integration that connects a burglary report to a plate record can just as easily connect a political event to vehicles, addresses, and relationships. The same summary tool that prepares a case file can produce a narrative about a person whose conduct has never been adjudicated. AI gives scattered facts the appearance of coherence. 5 uncertain observations can be rendered as a fluent account of someone's habits and associations. The resulting narrative may sound more confident than the evidence from which it was generated. Human review does not necessarily cure the problem, because human beings tend to interpret new information through the story they have already been given. The negated system does not need to declare a person guilty. It needs only to place that person higher on a list. The affirmative case for oversight is indispensable. Searches should be logged. Agencies should disclose their policies. Retention should be limited. Access should require authorization. Independent bodies should investigate misuse, and people harmed by improper surveillance should have remedies. Flock highlights audit logs, agency-controlled sharing, automatic deletion, and tools intended to identify atypical use. These are preferable to a system without such controls. The structural pressure, however, is that safeguards can, in effect, legitimate the creation of the capacity they are supposed to restrain. A city council may approve hundreds of cameras because the data will be deleted after 30 days. The public may accept a national network because searches are logged. Legislators may tolerate AI integration because an officer remains formally responsible for the decision. Each assurance lowers resistance to building the underlying system. But the safeguard and the capacity have different durability. A retention period can be extended. An approved use policy can be rewritten. An oversight office can lose funding or independence. An audit requirement can become a box-checking exercise. A new law can authorize uses that were previously prohibited. The hardware, data connectors, accounts, and analytical tools remain. An audit is most effective against someone violating the existing rules, but it's much less effective when the rules themselves are changed. This distinction has time and again appeared in surveillance history. The FBI's COINTELPRO program, for example, began as a campaign against the Communist Party and then expanded to include civil rights organizations, anti-war movements, and other domestic groups. The Senate's Church Committee later documented intelligence programs designed to disrupt and discredit people and organizations that agencies considered threats to the social order. The danger was not merely that individual agents improperly consulted files. The institutions themselves had adopted political surveillance as an authorized mission. After the September 11th attacks, bulk collection of telephone metadata was defended as a way to discover terrorist connections. The Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board later concluded that the Section 215 bulk telephone records program posed serious civil liberties concerns, lacked a sustainable legal foundation, and had shown only limited value. It recommended ending the program. These examples don't prove that every surveillance program will follow the same course. What they do show is that oversight commonly arrives after capability, mission, and institutional dependence have already developed. The negated state occurs when transparency becomes managed disclosure, oversight becomes certification, and legality becomes the only remaining measure of legitimacy. A government may publish detailed policies while, at the same time, continuing to collect everyone's movements. It may audit every search while authorizing a broad class of searches. It may faithfully delete data after a stated period, but still construct other systems that preserve exported reports, alerts, and derived intelligence. It may reveal aggregate statistics while denying individuals knowledge of the records and inferences attached to them. The population is made individually legible to the state. The state, on the other hand, remains visible only in generalities to the population. That is not reciprocal transparency. It is, frankly, one-way visibility decorated with procedural reassurance. The central problem isn't that every affirmative use is fraudulent. The real issue is that the positive use creates a structure whose internal pressures favor expansion. The camera, for instance, becomes more useful when there are more cameras. The database becomes more useful when it retains more information. AI becomes more useful when it can search more sources. Agency cooperation becomes more useful when jurisdictional boundaries are removed. The system, therefore, contains a ratchet. A success produces demand for wider deployment. Wider deployment creates more data. More data makes integration more valuable. Integration makes AI more effective. Greater effectiveness produces greater institutional reliance, and reliance makes dismantling the system appear irresponsible. The promised benefit remains real at every stage. That is precisely what makes the progression difficult to oppose. Political restraint does not possess the same automatic reinforcement. Privacy protections require continued legislative support, judicial independence, investigative journalism, public attention, administrative discipline, and officials willing to accept the political cost of not using available information. The surveillance infrastructure persists without effort. Its restraint must be continually renewed. This asymmetry becomes more serious across changes of government. A community may trust the administration purchasing the cameras. It may trust the current police chief, prosecutor, or vendor. But the system will be inherited by people who did not make the original promises. The proper question is not whether today's officials can describe a legitimate use. It is what the least trustworthy plausible successor could do with the same apparatus after changing its policies, categories, and access permissions. If oppressive use would require only a new watchlist, a new legal interpretation, or a new group of authorized users, then the architecture is not meaningfully limited. Why convenience is not a sufficient defense. Supporters of surveillance frequently present the debate as a contest between public safety and abstract privacy. The immediate benefit is concrete: a recovered vehicle, an arrested suspect, a located child. The harm is dispersed. People know that their movements might be reconstructed, but most cannot identify the moment at which that knowledge altered their behavior. This difference in visibility favors expansion. The solved crime is reported. The meeting never attended because participants feared monitoring is not. The journalist's source who remained silent is not. The person who avoided a lawful medical visit is not. The political organization that failed to form is not. The individual incorrectly classified but never informed is not. Surveillance harms are frequently preventive harms. Things people do not say, places they do not visit, and relationships they do not form. A surveillance state need not arrest everyone. It succeeds when people understand that ordinary activity can be retrieved, combined, and reinterpreted by institutions they cannot observe or challenge. The possibility of scrutiny changes conduct before coercion is visibly exercised. So, convenience must therefore be evaluated against the political capacity being constructed, not just against the immediate transaction, right? A system that saves several investigative hours may also create the ability to reconstruct the lawful movements of an entire community. A centralized repository might simplify evidence management, but it also gives future authorities an inherited history of people who were never even suspected of crimes. An AI search tool could identify a vehicle faster, while making political associations searchable in ordinary language. The benefit and the danger here are not separate. The same feature actually produces both. The case against this architecture is not an argument that government must be blind, that no camera may ever record a crime, or that investigators should reject modern tools. It's really an argument against general-purpose population legibility. For example, a narrowly placed camera that records a protected facility and rapidly deletes irrelevant footage just isn't equivalent to a network that records vehicles across an entire region. Similarly, a system that measures aggregate traffic without retaining identities is not the same as a database of individual movement histories. A case-specific search supported by legal process is just not equivalent to routine access to a nationwide repository. And a tool that organizes evidence already lawfully gathered for one investigation is not the same as AI that searches across unrelated government and commercial systems. The relevant boundary is architectural. We should oppose systems that collect innocent people's movements by default, preserve them for retrospective use, connect them across jurisdictions, attach them to stable identities, map their associations, and expose the result to natural language AI search. Where a public purpose genuinely requires technology, the limitations must be material rather than rhetorical. Non-relevant information should not be collected where possible. Identification should be separated from aggregate measurement. Retention should be brief, automatic, and technically enforced. Public service databases should not silently become police intelligence sources. Cross-jurisdictional searches should require individualized legal authority. Social network inference and predictive classification should not be normal functions of municipal infrastructure. The objective should be to ensure that a future government seeking comprehensive surveillance would have to build a new system, obtain new information, and confront the public again. It should not inherit the capability ready for use. Conclusion. The public case against the surveillance state cannot rest on the claim that flock cameras never solve crimes, that data centers provide no administrative benefit, or that AI cannot help investigators find relevant evidence. Those claims are neither necessary nor credible. The stronger argument follows the entire progression. The affirmative use solves an immediate problem. The implementation creates pressure for broader coverage, greater integration, and deeper institutional dependence. The negated state then uses the same architecture to classify, follow, and control people whose conduct may be lawful, but politically, socially, or administratively disfavored. History shows that information gathered for administration can be redirected toward incarceration. Intelligence created in the name of security can be turned against civil rights and anti-war movements. Emergency surveillance can become bulk collection whose value is later found to be limited. The error is not merely trusting the wrong official, it is creating a durable power and mistaking temporary restraint for a permanent property of the technology. Flock cameras are the eyes. Data centers are the memory. AI is the interpretive mind. Separately, each can be presented as a convenience. Integrated, they form a system capable of reconstructing lives without the knowledge, participation, or consent of the people being observed. That architecture should be opposed before its most abusive uses become visible, because by the time the abuse is undeniable, the infrastructure, institutions, and political dependencies necessary to sustain it will already exist. The question is not whether we can imagine a benevolent government using these systems responsibly today. The question is why we would build a machinery of domination and assume that every government that inherits it will decline to use it.